What if I told you that every single interaction you have with another human being follows predictable psychological patterns? What if I told you that the most successful people in the world, the leaders, the influencers, the ones who seem to effortlessly connect with anyone, aren't just naturally gifted, but have mastered the hidden psychology of human behavior? This audiobook will teach you to see what others miss. You'll learn to read the subtle psychological cues that reveal what people are really thinking and feeling. You'll understand the neurological mechanisms that drive human connection and influence. Most importantly, you'll develop the social intelligence to build deeper relationships, command respect, and create genuine influence in every area of your life. By the time you finish this audiobook, you will not think the same way about human interaction. You will see the psychological patterns underlying every conversation, every conflict, every moment of connection. This is not just about being more social. This is about mastering the fundamental psychology of how humans think, feel, and behave in social situations. Chapter 1. The hidden psychology behind every human interaction. Every conversation you have, every relationship you build, every moment of social connection operates according to deep psychological principles that most people never consciously recognize. These aren't abstract theories. They're hardwired patterns in the human brain that have evolved over millions of years to help us survive and thrive in social groups. The first hidden principle is the psychology of social threat detection. Within the first few seconds of meeting someone new, your brain is unconsciously running a complex threat assessment. Is this person safe? Are they part of my tribe? Do they have higher or lower social status than me? Your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, is constantly scanning for signs of social danger, rejection, humiliation, exclusion. This is why first impressions are so powerful and so difficult to change. Your brain makes decisions about someone before your conscious mind even realizes what's happening. Understanding this gives you tremendous power. When you know that everyone you meet is unconsciously asking, "Am I safe with this person?" you can deliberately signal safety and acceptance. You can use your body language, tone of voice, and initial words to immediately put someone's threat detection system at ease. This is the foundation of all social influence, making others feel psychologically safe in your presence. The second hidden principle is reciprocity bias. Humans are psychologically wired to return favors, even small ones. This goes far deeper than just being polite. It's a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors build the cooperative relationships necessary for group survival. When someone does something for us, even something minor, like holding a door or paying a compliment, our brain creates a psychological debt that we feel compelled to repay. Socially intelligent people understand this principle and use it ethically to build rapport and influence. They look for opportunities to provide value first, sharing useful information, offering genuine compliments, or simply giving their full attention. This creates positive reciprocity cycles that strengthen relationships over time. The third principle is social proof psychology. Humans are herd animals. We look to others to determine what's normal, acceptable, and desirable. This is why testimonials are so powerful in marketing, why we're more likely to help someone if we see others helping, and why social movements can spread so rapidly. Your brain is constantly asking, "What are others like me doing in this situation?" and using that information to guide your own behavior. When you understand social proof psychology, you can shape the social context to influence behavior. You can highlight examples of the behavior you want to see. You can position yourself as someone others want to emulate. You can create environments where positive behaviors become the obvious social norm. The fourth hidden principle is the psychology of status and hierarchy. Every human interaction involves subtle negotiations about relative social position. This isn't about being arrogant or domineering. It's about understanding that humans naturally organize themselves into social hierarchies for group coordination. Your brain is constantly processing signals about where you and others fit in the social structure. High-status behaviors include confident posture, deliberate speech patterns, taking up appropriate space, and showing genuine interest in others without seeking approval. Low-status behaviors include fidgeting, seeking constant validation, apologetic body language, and nervous speech patterns. By understanding these signals, you can consciously project the level of confidence and authority that serves your goals. The final principle is emotional contagion. Human emotions are literally contagious. When you're around someone who's anxious, your stress hormones increase. When you're with someone who's genuinely happy and energetic, you feel more positive yourself. This happens through mirror neurons in your brain that automatically mimic the emotional states of others. Emotionally intelligent people learn to manage their own emotional state first, then use emotional contagion to positively influence others. They bring calm energy to stressful situations, enthusiasm to mundane tasks, and confidence to uncertain environments. They understand that their emotional state doesn't just affect them, it affects everyone around them. These 5 principles operate in every human interaction, whether you're aware of them or not. The difference between socially successful people and everyone else is that successful people understand these patterns and work with them consciously rather than being unconsciously controlled by them. Chapter 2. Decoding the social brain. How we're wired for connection. Your brain is fundamentally a social organ. Every major system in your brain evolved not just to help you survive as an individual, but to help you thrive as part of a social group. Understanding how your social brain works is the key to mastering human psychology and developing genuine social intelligence. The most important part of your social brain is the prefrontal cortex, located just behind your forehead. This is your brain's CEO. It handles complex social reasoning, emotional regulation, and long-term planning. When you're reading someone's facial expression, understanding social context, or deciding how to respond in a delicate conversation, your prefrontal cortex is doing the heavy lifting. But here's what most people don't realize. Your prefrontal cortex is also the most energy-expensive part of your brain. When you're tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, it's the first system to go offline. This is why people make poor social decisions when they're exhausted, why conflicts escalate when everyone's stressed, and why emotional intelligence seems to disappear during difficult times. The practical implication is enormous. If you want to maintain peak social intelligence, you must manage your mental energy. This means getting adequate sleep, managing stress levels, taking breaks during intense social interactions, and being strategic about when you engage in important conversations. Your social brain literally cannot function at full capacity when your energy is depleted. The second crucial component is your mirror neuron system. These specialized brain cells fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing the same action. They're the neurological foundation of empathy. allowing you to literally feel what others are feeling by simulating their experiences in your own brain. Mirror neurons are why you automatically smile when someone smiles at you, why you feel tense when you're around anxious people, and why watching someone get hurt makes you wince. They're also why behavioral mirroring, subtly matching someone's posture, speech patterns, or energy level, creates such powerful rapport. When you mirror someone appropriately, their brain experiences it as social synchrony and connection. However, mirror neurons can also work against you. If you're constantly around negative, stressed, or toxic people, your mirror neurons will make you absorb their emotional states. This is why your social environment has such a powerful impact on your own psychology and behavior. You literally become more like the people you spend time with, whether you realize it or not. The third key system is your limbic brain, which processes emotions and social rewards. When you experience social connection, acceptance, or positive feedback, your brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, and other neurochemicals that create feelings of pleasure and bonding. This is why social media can be so addictive. It provides intermittent social rewards that trigger these same neurochemical pathways. Understanding your limbic system helps you recognize your own social motivations and those of others. Everyone is seeking some form of social reward, recognition, acceptance, status, connection, or validation. When you can identify what type of social reward someone is seeking, you can provide it authentically and build stronger relationships. Your limbic system also handles social pain. The same brain regions that process physical pain also activate when you experience social rejection, exclusion, or humiliation. This is why social rejection hurts so much. Your brain literally processes it as a threat to your survival. It's also why public speaking feels so terrifying to most people. Your ancient brain interprets the potential for social rejection as a life or death situation. The fourth component is your brain's threat detection system, centered in the amygdala. This system is constantly scanning your social environment for potential dangers. People who might reject you, situations where you might be humiliated, or interactions that could damage your social standing. Your threat detection system operates much faster than your conscious thinking. It can identify potential social threats within milliseconds and trigger fight or flight responses before you even realize what's happening. This is why you might feel inexplicably uncomfortable around certain people or in certain social situations. The key to social mastery is learning to work with your threat detection system rather than against it. This means gradually exposing yourself to social situations that trigger mild anxiety, building your confidence through small successes, and developing techniques to calm your nervous system during challenging interactions. Finally, your social brain includes sophisticated systems for understanding social hierarchy, group dynamics, and cultural norms. These systems allow you to navigate complex social structures, understand unspoken rules, and adapt your behavior to different social contexts. The remarkable thing about your social brain is its plasticity. The neural pathways that govern your social behavior can be strengthened through practice and awareness. Every time you consciously practice a social skill, you're literally rewiring your brain to make that behavior more automatic and natural. This means that social intelligence isn't fixed, it's trainable. You can develop better empathy, stronger communication skills, more charismatic presence, and greater emotional intelligence through deliberate practice and conscious awareness of how your social brain operates. Chapter 3. The 4 pillars of social intelligence mastery. Social intelligence is not a single skill, but a sophisticated integration of 4 distinct yet interconnected capabilities. These 4 pillars work together to create the kind of magnetic presence and genuine influence that characterizes the most socially successful people. Master these 4 pillars, and you will have the foundation for extraordinary relationships and social impact. The first pillar is social awareness, the ability to accurately read and understand the emotions, motivations, and psychological states of others. This goes far beyond just noticing when someone seems upset. Social awareness means developing the sensitivity to detect subtle emotional shifts, understanding the deeper needs and fears that drive behavior, and recognizing the complex social dynamics operating in any group situation. Most people are so focused on themselves, what they're going to say next, how they're being perceived, whether they're making a good impression, that they miss the rich psychological information constantly available in every interaction. Socially aware, people have learned to shift their attention outward, becoming keen observers of human nature. This involves mastering the art of reading microexpressions, the fleeting facial expressions that reveal true emotions before people can consciously control them. It means listening not just to what people say, but how they say it, what they don't say, and what their body language reveals about their internal state. Social awareness also requires understanding context. The same behavior can mean completely different things depending on the situation, the person's background, their current stress level, and their relationship with you. A socially aware person considers all these factors when interpreting behavior, rather than making snap judgments based on surface appearances. The second pillar is self-management, the ability to regulate your own emotions, behavior, and energy in social situations. This is perhaps the most crucial pillar because you cannot effectively influence others if you cannot first influence yourself. Self-management means maintaining emotional equilibrium under pressure, projecting the energy and presence you want others to experience, and making conscious choices about how you respond rather than reacting automatically. Self-management begins with emotional self-awareness, recognizing your own emotional states as they arise, and understanding how those emotions affect your behavior and impact others. It means noticing when you're feeling defensive, anxious, frustrated, or overwhelmed, and having strategies to manage those states productively. It also involves energy management. Your emotional and mental energy profoundly affects everyone around you through emotional contagion. When you bring calm, confident, positive energy to interactions, others naturally feel more comfortable and open. When you bring anxious, negative, or chaotic energy, others mirror those states, and interactions become more difficult. Advanced self-management includes the ability to consciously shift your emotional state to match the needs of the situation. Sometimes, leadership requires projecting strength and determination. Sometimes it requires warmth and empathy. Sometimes it requires playfulness and humor. Socially intelligent people develop the flexibility to access different aspects of their personality as needed. The third pillar is social influence, the ability to guide interactions and relationships in positive directions. This is not about manipulation or coercion, but about creating genuine value for others while achieving your own legitimate goals. Social influence requires understanding what motivates people and finding ways to align your interests with theirs. Effective social influence begins with building trust and credibility. People are only influenced by those they respect and feel safe with. This means being authentic, keeping your commitments, showing genuine interest in others' well-being, and demonstrating competence in areas that matter to them. It also requires mastering the psychology of persuasion. This includes understanding how people make decisions, what types of arguments resonate with different personality types, how to frame information in compelling ways, and how to create emotional as well as logical reasons for people to say yes to your ideas. Advanced social influence involves what researchers call inspirational motivation, the ability to connect with people's higher values and aspirations, helping them see how your proposal serves their deepest interests and contributes to something meaningful. This is the difference between getting compliance and creating genuine enthusiasm and commitment. The fourth pillar is relationship architecture, the ability to build, maintain, and deepen meaningful connections over time. This goes beyond networking or making small talk. Relationship architecture involves understanding the deeper dynamics that create lasting bonds between people and knowing how to nurture those bonds systematically. This includes mastering the art of vulnerability and trust building. The strongest relationships are built on mutual vulnerability, the willingness to share authentic thoughts, feelings, and experiences with others. But vulnerability must be calibrated appropriately. Too much too soon can make others uncomfortable. Too little can keep relationships superficial. Relationship architecture also involves understanding and managing relationship dynamics over time. All relationships go through predictable phases: initial connection, deepening intimacy, challenges and conflicts, and either renewed closeness or gradual distance. Skilled relationship architects know how to navigate these phases consciously, addressing issues before they become problems, and continuously adding value to others' lives. It includes the ability to maintain extensive networks of relationships without those relationships feeling transactional or superficial. This requires systems for staying in touch, remembering important details about people's lives, and finding genuine ways to contribute to their success and happiness. These four pillars work synergistically. Social awareness gives you the information you need to manage yourself appropriately. Self-management creates the foundation for effective influence. Social influence builds stronger relationships. And strong relationships provide more opportunities to develop all four skills. The most socially intelligent people have developed all four pillars to a high level. They read social situations accurately, manage their own presence skillfully, influence others ethically and effectively, and build remarkable networks of meaningful relationships. This combination creates what appears to be natural charisma, but is actually the result of conscious skill development. Chapter 4. Understanding personality types and behavioral patterns. Every person you encounter operates according to distinct psychological patterns that shape how they perceive the world, make decisions, and interact with others. Understanding these personality patterns gives you a tremendous advantage in social situations because it allows you to adapt your communication style to match how others naturally think and process information. The foundation of personality psychology reveals that people differ fundamentally in four key dimensions. First is introversion versus extroversion, how people direct their energy and attention. Introverts focus their energy inward, preferring depth over breadth in relationships and needing quiet time to recharge. Extroverts direct energy outward, gaining stimulation from social interaction and external activity. This difference affects everything about how people communicate. Introverts typically prefer to think before speaking, appreciate written communication over phone calls, and value one-on-one conversations over group discussions. They often have incredibly rich inner lives but may appear reserved in social settings. Extroverts think out loud, prefer verbal communication, and thrive in group environments. They may appear more socially confident, but can sometimes dominate conversations without realizing it. When interacting with introverts, give them time to process information before expecting responses. Ask thoughtful questions and create space for their insights. Don't mistake their quiet nature for disinterest or lack of intelligence. Some of the most brilliant people are introverts, who simply prefer to observe and reflect before contributing. With extroverts, engage their energy and enthusiasm. They appreciate interactive conversations, brainstorming sessions, and opportunities to verbally explore ideas. However, be sure to also create opportunities for them to listen, as their natural tendency to externalize their thinking can sometimes overshadow others' contributions. The second dimension is sensing versus intuition, how people take in and process information. Sensors focus on concrete facts, details, and practical applications. They trust what they can see, hear, and directly experience. They prefer step-by-step instructions, specific examples, and proven methods. Intuitives focus on patterns, possibilities, and conceptual connections. They're drawn to abstract ideas, future potential, and innovative approaches. They prefer to understand the big picture before diving into details and often generate multiple creative solutions to problems. When communicating with sensors, be specific and practical. Provide concrete examples, detailed instructions, and evidence-based support for your ideas. Respect their need for proven methods and incremental change. Don't overwhelm them with abstract theories or completely novel approaches. With intuitives, start with the big picture and explain how details fit into the larger vision. Focus on possibilities and potential rather than just current realities. Encourage their creativity and be open to unconventional solutions. However, make sure to also address practical implementation concerns. The third dimension is thinking versus feeling, how people make decisions. Thinkers prioritize logic, consistency, and objective analysis. They want to understand the rational basis for decisions and prefer impersonal criteria for evaluation. They value competence, efficiency, and fairness. Feelers prioritize values, relationships, and human impact. They want to understand how decisions affect people and prefer to consider individual circumstances. They value harmony, authenticity, and compassion. When working with thinkers, present logical arguments supported by data and evidence. Focus on efficiency, competence, and objective benefits. Acknowledge potential problems and have rational solutions ready. Don't take their direct communication style personally. They're focused on the logic of ideas, not personal relationships. With feelers, emphasize the human impact of decisions and show how your proposals align with shared values. Take time to build personal rapport and demonstrate genuine care for others' well-being. Be diplomatic in your communication and acknowledge the emotional aspects of situations. The fourth dimension is judging versus perceiving, how people organize their external world. Judges prefer structure, closure, and planned approaches. They like to make decisions quickly and stick with them. They value organization, predictability, and goal achievement. Perceivers prefer flexibility, openness, and adaptable approaches. They like to keep options open and gather more information before deciding. They value spontaneity, exploration, and discovery. With judges, be organized and prepared. Provide clear timelines, specific goals, and structured approaches. Respect their need for closure and avoid constantly changing plans. When you must introduce changes, explain the reasoning and provide a new, clear structure. With perceivers, maintain flexibility and avoid being overly rigid in your approach. Present options rather than single solutions and encourage their input in shaping plans. Be patient with their need to explore alternatives and don't pressure them for immediate decisions unless absolutely necessary. Beyond these basic dimensions, you also need to understand motivational patterns. Some people are primarily motivated by achievement and recognition. Others are motivated by security and stability. Some seek autonomy and independence. Others value connection and belonging. Recognition-motivated people respond well to public acknowledgement, competitive challenges, and opportunities to demonstrate their capabilities. Security-motivated people prefer clear expectations, proven methods, and gradual change. Autonomy-motivated people want freedom to choose their own methods and hate micromanagement. Connection-motivated people thrive on collaboration, team unity, and shared experiences. The key to personality-based communication is not to put people in boxes, but to recognize patterns that help you communicate more effectively. Most people have preferences across all these dimensions, and those preferences influence how they naturally interpret and respond to information. Socially intelligent people develop the flexibility to adapt their communication style to match others' natural patterns while still remaining authentic to their own personality. This doesn't mean being fake or manipulative. It means being considerate enough to present information in ways that others can easily understand and appreciate. Chapter 5. The Science of First Impressions and Snap Judgments. Within 7 seconds of meeting someone new, your brain has already formed detailed judgments about their competence, trustworthiness, social status, and likability. These split-second assessments happen automatically and unconsciously, yet they profoundly influence every subsequent interaction. Understanding the psychology of first impressions gives you the power to make those crucial initial moments work in your favor. The science behind first impressions reveals that humans evolved to make rapid social judgments as a survival mechanism. When our ancestors encountered strangers, they needed to quickly determine whether this person was a potential ally, threat, or mating partner. Those who were skilled at making accurate snap judgments were more likely to survive and reproduce. Today, your brain still operates according to these ancient patterns. Within milliseconds of seeing someone's face, your brain automatically categorizes them along multiple dimensions. Research shows that people can accurately judge personality traits like extroversion, conscientiousness, and emotional stability from photographs alone, often with remarkable accuracy. The most powerful factor in first impressions is facial structure and expression. Faces with strong jawlines and defined cheekbones are automatically perceived as more dominant and competent. Faces with softer features and wider eyes are perceived as more trustworthy and approachable. Symmetric faces are universally considered more attractive and are associated with higher intelligence and better genes. However, facial expression matters even more than bone structure. A genuine smile activates the muscles around the eyes and creates what researchers call the Duchenne smile. This type of smile triggers positive responses in others' brains and immediately increases your likability. Fake smiles, which only involve the mouth muscles, actually decrease trust because they signal potential deception. Eye contact patterns are equally crucial. The optimal amount of eye contact varies by culture, but in most Western contexts, maintaining eye contact 60–70% of the time during conversation signals confidence and sincerity. Too little eye contact suggests insecurity or dishonesty. Too much can feel aggressive or inappropriate. Your posture and body language convey status and confidence before you say a single word. Upright posture with shoulders back signals self-assurance and competence. Slouching or hunched shoulders suggest insecurity or low energy. The amount of space you take up also matters, as confident people naturally use more space through open gestures and relaxed positioning. Voice quality has an enormous impact on first impressions. Lower-pitched voices are automatically perceived as more authoritative and competent, which is why both men and women unconsciously lower their pitch when they want to project authority. Speaking rate also matters. Slightly slower speech suggests thoughtfulness and control, while very fast speech can signal anxiety or lack of confidence. Clothing and grooming choices communicate social status, attention to detail, and respect for the situation. This doesn't mean you need expensive clothes, but your appearance should be appropriate for the context and show that you've invested effort in your presentation. Research shows that people form impressions about your income level, education, and social class within seconds based purely on clothing cues. The psychological principle of primacy means that first impressions create a filter through which all subsequent information is interpreted. If someone initially perceives you as competent, they'll interpret ambiguous behaviors as signs of competence. If their first impression is negative, they'll look for confirming evidence and discount contradictory information. This is why recovering from a poor first impression is so difficult. It's not impossible, but it requires consistent positive interactions over time to overcome the initial negative judgment. It's far more efficient to invest energy in making strong first impressions than trying to repair poor ones. The good news is that first impressions are largely controllable. Since they're based on observable behaviors and characteristics, you can consciously optimize your presentation for different situations. This doesn't mean being inauthentic. It means being intentional about highlighting your positive qualities from the very first moment. Context also shapes first impression formation. The same behavior can create completely different impressions depending on the setting. Casual clothing that's appropriate at a weekend barbecue would create negative impressions in a business meeting. Understanding the expectations and norms of each environment allows you to calibrate your presentation appropriately. Cultural background significantly influences first impression criteria. Direct eye contact that signals confidence in American culture might be perceived as disrespectful in some Asian cultures. Physical touching that's normal in Mediterranean cultures could make Northern Europeans uncomfortable. Developing cultural intelligence means understanding these variations and adapting accordingly. The psychological concept of thin slicing explains why first impressions can be surprisingly accurate. Humans are remarkably skilled at detecting subtle behavioral cues that reveal underlying personality traits. Your microexpressions, posture, voice tone, and movement patterns all provide information about your internal state and character. However, first impressions can also be systematically biased. The halo effect means that one positive trait can make everything else about a person seem more positive. Physical attractiveness creates a particularly strong halo effect. Attractive people are automatically perceived as more intelligent, competent, and moral, even when there's no logical connection between appearance and these qualities. Understanding these biases helps you both leverage them ethically and avoid being misled by them when evaluating others. Just because someone makes a strong first impression doesn't mean they're actually competent or trustworthy. Similarly, someone who makes a poor first impression due to nervousness or cultural differences might be an exceptional person once you get to know them. The key to mastering first impressions is developing the ability to consciously project the qualities that matter most in each specific situation while remaining authentic to your core personality. This means having a repertoire of presentation styles you can access depending on whether you need to project authority, warmth, creativity, or trustworthiness. Chapter 6. Microexpressions and the language of the face. The human face is the most sophisticated communication device in nature, capable of producing over 10,000 distinct expressions through the coordination of 43 different muscles. Most people believe they can hide their true emotions behind social masks, but the reality is that authentic feelings leak through microexpressions, lightning-fast facial movements that occur in less than 1/5 of a second, far too quickly for conscious control. Learning to read microexpressions gives you access to people's unfiltered emotional truth. While someone might say they're fine, their face might flash irritation. While they claim to agree with your proposal, their expression might reveal doubt or skepticism. This skill is so powerful that it's used by everyone from FBI interrogators to Fortune 500 executives to therapists working with trauma victims. The 7 universal microexpressions correspond to basic human emotions that appear identical across all cultures, ages, and backgrounds. These expressions are hardwired into our neurology and appear automatically when we experience the corresponding emotions, regardless of our attempts to conceal them. The first universal expression is happiness, characterized by the contraction of muscles around the eyes and the lifting of the mouth corners. Genuine happiness creates what researchers call crow's feet, small wrinkles that radiate from the outer corners of the eyes. This is why genuine smiles are called Duchenne smiles, named after the scientist who first identified this pattern. Fake smiles only engage the mouth muscles and can be sustained much longer than genuine smiles, which naturally fade after a few seconds. When you see genuine happiness microexpressions, it indicates that the person is experiencing authentic, positive emotion. This is valuable information because it tells you what truly makes someone feel good. not just what they claim makes them happy. You can use this knowledge to build rapport by focusing conversations on topics that generate genuine positive responses. The second expression is sadness, identified by the drooping of the upper eyelids, loss of focus in the eyes, and the slight downward pull of the mouth corners. The inner corners of the eyebrows may also draw up and together, creating a triangular shape in the forehead. Sadness microexpressions often appear when people discuss losses, disappointments, or regrets, even if they're trying to appear strong or unaffected. Recognizing sadness allows you to respond with appropriate empathy and support. Sometimes people need acknowledgement of their pain more than solutions to their problems. When you see sadness microexpressions, it's often more effective to validate their feelings than to immediately try to cheer them up or fix their situation. The third expression is anger, marked by the lowering and drawing together of the eyebrows, tension in the eyelids, and the pressing together or thinning of the lips. The nostrils may also flare slightly. Anger microexpressions can appear even when someone is speaking calmly or trying to appear reasonable. They indicate that the person feels frustrated, threatened, or opposed to what's happening. Spotting anger microexpressions early allows you to address underlying concerns before they escalate into open conflict. When you notice anger flashes, you can pause to check for understanding, acknowledge their perspective, or adjust your approach to be less threatening to their interests or values. The fourth expression is fear, characterized by raised upper eyelids, tensed lower eyelids, and raised eyebrows drawn together. The mouth may open slightly and pull back at the corners. Fear microexpressions reveal when someone feels threatened, uncertain, or anxious about a situation, even if they're trying to appear confident. Understanding when someone is experiencing fear allows you to provide reassurance, slow down your approach, or address their specific concerns. Fear often masquerades as resistance or disagreement, but the underlying emotion is actually uncertainty or worry about negative consequences. The fifth expression is surprise, shown by raised eyebrows, wide open eyes, and a dropped jaw. Surprise is typically the briefest microexpression because the emotion itself is fleeting. You're surprised until you process what happened. Then you experience a different emotion about the situation. Genuine surprise cannot be faked convincingly because the muscle movements are too complex and coordinated. Surprise microexpressions tell you when information is unexpected or when someone's assumptions have been challenged. This can be valuable for understanding whether your message is being received as intended or whether you need to provide more context or explanation. The sixth expression is disgust, identified by the wrinkling of the nose, raising of the upper lip, and lowering of the eyebrows. The lower eyelids may push up slightly. Disgust can be physical, moral, or emotional. People show disgust microexpressions when they encounter something they find repulsive, offensive, or deeply disagreeable. Recognizing disgust helps you understand when you've crossed someone's values or boundaries. This information allows you to adjust your approach, apologize if appropriate, or simply understand that this person may not be aligned with your values or proposals. The seventh expression is contempt, the only asymmetrical universal expression. It appears as a slight raising of one corner of the mouth, creating a half smirk or sneer. Contempt indicates feelings of superiority, disdain, or moral disapproval. It suggests that someone believes they are better than or above whatever they're contemptuous about. Contempt is often the most damaging emotion in relationships because it creates distance and hierarchy rather than connection. When you see contempt, microexpressions, it indicates serious problems in the relationship or interaction that need to be addressed directly. Beyond the 7 universal expressions, you also need to watch for microexpressions of thinking and concentration. When people are processing complex information, their eyes may defocus slightly, their mouth may purse or move to one side, and they may show subtle tension around the eyes. Learning to recognize thinking expressions helps you know when to wait for someone to process information versus when they're simply avoiding giving you an answer. The key to reading microexpressions accurately is understanding that they often contrast with the person's overall expression or verbal communication. Someone might be smiling and agreeing with you while flashing micro-expressions of anger or disgust. These contradictions are where the most valuable information lies because they reveal the person's unfiltered emotional truth. However, it's crucial to remember that micro-expressions show what someone is feeling, not necessarily what they're thinking or what they intend to do. Emotions provide important information, but they must be interpreted in context. Someone might flash anger because they're frustrated with themselves, not because they disagree with you. Someone might show fear because they're worried about implementation challenges, not because they oppose your idea. The most socially intelligent approach is to use micro-expression reading as information gathering rather than mind reading. When you notice micro-expressions that contradict someone's verbal communication, you can ask gentle questions to better understand their perspective, provide reassurance if they seem anxious, or slow down if they appear overwhelmed. Developing this skill requires practice and patience. Start by watching people in low-stakes situations. Notice the micro-expressions that flash across faces during casual conversations, while watching movies or during presentations. Pay attention to the micro-expressions that appear on your own face by practicing in front of a mirror or recording yourself. Remember that some people are naturally more expressive than others, and some have learned to control their expressions more effectively. Cultural background also influences expression patterns. Though the 7 universal emotions appear across all cultures, the goal is not to become a human lie detector, but to develop greater sensitivity to the emotional currents flowing beneath surface-level interactions. Chapter 7. Body Language Mastery. What people don't say. While people can carefully control their words and even manage their facial expressions to some degree, body language operates largely outside conscious awareness. Your posture, gestures, spatial positioning, and movement patterns continuously broadcast information about your confidence, emotional state, intentions, and social status. Learning to read and consciously direct body language gives you access to a powerful communication channel that most people completely ignore. The foundation of body language psychology lies in understanding that your physical presentation directly influences both how others perceive you and how you feel about yourself. This is because of the bidirectional relationship between mind and body. Your thoughts influence your posture, but your posture also influences your thoughts and emotions. When you deliberately adopt confident body language, you actually begin to feel more confident due to hormonal changes triggered by your physical positioning. Research by social psychologist Amy Cuddy demonstrated that holding powerful poses for just 2 minutes increases testosterone levels and decreases cortisol, creating genuine feelings of confidence and reducing stress. This means that body language is not just about external communication. It's also a tool for internal state management. The most fundamental element of confident body language is posture alignment. When you stand or sit with your spine straight, shoulders back, and head level, you project competence and self-assurance. This alignment also optimizes your breathing and energy flow, making you feel more alert and capable. Conversely, slouched posture with forward head positioning signals insecurity and low energy, while actually making you feel more tired and less confident. The key is finding the balance between rigid military posture, which can appear aggressive or uncomfortable, and relaxed alignment that maintains dignity and presence. Think of your spine as a stack of blocks that should balance naturally, with your head floating effortlessly on top, rather than being held in place through muscular tension. Shoulder positioning is equally important for conveying confidence and status. Broad, relaxed shoulders suggest capability and emotional stability. Shoulders that are pulled up toward the ears indicate tension and anxiety. Shoulders that roll forward suggest defensive positioning and low confidence. The ideal shoulder position is broad and relaxed, taking up appropriate space without appearing aggressive. Hand and arm positioning provides continuous information about someone's emotional state and intentions. Open hand gestures with palms visible signal honesty and openness. Hidden hands, whether in pockets, behind the back, or under tables, can create suspicion and distance. Crossed arms create a physical barrier that others unconsciously interpret as emotional or psychological barriers. However, context matters enormously in interpreting arm positions. Someone might cross their arms because they're cold, because it's comfortable, or because they're concentrating, not necessarily because they're defensive. The key is to look for clusters of behaviors rather than interpreting single gestures in isolation. Gestures, while speaking, reveal confidence levels and thinking patterns. Confident speakers use deliberate, controlled gestures that emphasize their points without being distracting. Their gestures tend to move away from their body, claiming space and drawing attention to their ideas. Nervous speakers often use repetitive, self-soothing gestures like touching their face, playing with their hair, or adjusting their clothing. The speed and size of gestures also communicate different messages. Larger, slower gestures suggest thoughtfulness and authority. Smaller, faster gestures can indicate excitement or anxiety. The most effective speakers vary their gesture patterns to match the content and emotional tone of their message. Spatial positioning and proxemics reveal social dynamics and relationship quality. The distance people maintain from each other, how they angle their bodies, and whether they mirror each other's positioning, all provide information about rapport, status, and comfort levels. In most Western cultures, intimate distance is reserved for close family and romantic partners. Personal distance is used for friends and casual acquaintances. Social distance is appropriate for business interactions and formal situations. Public distance is used for presentations and formal speeches. When someone consistently maintains greater distance than the situation typically requires, it may indicate discomfort, disagreement, or desire for emotional distance. When someone moves closer than cultural norms suggest, it might indicate interest, attraction, or an attempt to establish dominance. Body orientation is another crucial element. When people are engaged and interested, they tend to orient their entire body toward the speaker, not just their head. When they're disinterested or looking for an exit, Their feet and body may point toward doors or away from the interaction, even if they're maintaining polite eye contact and conversation. Mirroring is one of the most powerful tools in body language psychology. When people feel rapport and connection, they unconsciously match each other's posture, gestures, and energy levels. You can deliberately use subtle mirroring to build rapport, but it must be done naturally and respectfully. Obvious mimicking feels manipulative and destroys trust. Effective mirroring involves matching overall energy levels and general posture rather than copying specific gestures. If someone is leaning forward and speaking energetically, you can lean forward slightly and increase your own energy. If someone is speaking softly and appears relaxed, you can match their calmer energy and relaxed positioning. The concept of personal space bubbles is culturally specific but universally important. Everyone has invisible boundaries around their body that feel comfortable or uncomfortable when crossed. Respecting these boundaries builds trust, while violating them creates tension and defensive responses. Status and dominance are continuously negotiated through body language positioning. Higher status individuals typically take up more space, use more expansive gestures, and maintain more relaxed postures. They tend to move more slowly and deliberately. Lower status individuals often make themselves smaller, use more restricted gestures, and display more nervous energy. However, true confidence differs from dominance displays. Confident body language is relaxed and natural, rather than forced or aggressive. It claims appropriate space without infringing on others. It projects capability without needing to diminish anyone else. Nervous habits and self-soothing behaviors are among the most revealing aspects of body language. Touching the face, neck, or hair, fidgeting with objects, repetitive movements, and changes in breathing patterns all indicate internal anxiety or discomfort. Learning to recognize these patterns in yourself allows you to manage your anxiety and project greater confidence. Recognizing them in others allows you to provide reassurance or adjust your approach to be less threatening. The integration of all these elements creates what researchers call presence, the quality of being fully engaged, confident, and authentic in social interactions. Presence cannot be faked because it requires alignment between your internal state and external presentation. When your thoughts, emotions, and body language are all congruent, others sense your authenticity and respond with greater trust and respect. Developing body language mastery requires both self-awareness and other awareness. You need to become conscious of your own habitual patterns and their effects on others. You also need to develop sensitivity to others' non-verbal communication, so you can respond appropriately to their comfort levels and emotional states. The goal is not to manipulate others through body language tricks, but to become more conscious and intentional about this powerful communication channel. When your body language authentically reflects confidence, interest, and respect for others, it enhances all your interactions and relationships. Chapter 8. Vocal Patterns and the Psychology of Tone. Your voice carries far more information than the words you speak. The tone, pace, volume, and rhythm of your speech communicate your emotional state, confidence level, social status, and intentions more powerfully than your actual message. Most people completely ignore this vocal channel of communication, missing crucial information about others and failing to optimize their own vocal presence. The psychology of vocal communication reveals that humans are extraordinarily sensitive to vocal cues. Before we even process the meaning of someone's words, our brains automatically analyze their vocal patterns for information about their emotional state, trustworthiness, and social position. This happens within milliseconds and influences our entire response to the person and their message. The fundamental element of vocal psychology is pitch, which directly correlates with perceived authority and competence. Lower-pitched voices are universally associated with leadership, intelligence, and trustworthiness. This is why both men and women unconsciously lower their pitch when they want to project authority or when they're trying to be taken seriously. However, the key is not simply speaking in the lowest possible register, which can sound artificial and strained. The goal is to speak from your optimal pitch range, the lower third of your natural vocal range, where your voice has the most resonance and power. This requires proper breathing, support, and relaxation of unnecessary tension in your throat and jaw. Vocal resonance refers to how your voice vibrates through your body and fills the space around you. A resonant voice sounds rich, full, and authoritative, while a thin voice lacks presence and authority. Resonance is created by proper breath support, relaxed throat muscles, and the use of your entire body as a resonating chamber. To develop better resonance, focus on breathing deeply from your diaphragm rather than shallowly from your chest. When you speak, imagine your voice originating from your chest rather than your throat. This creates a richer, more powerful sound that others find more compelling and trustworthy. Speaking pace reveals confidence and thinking patterns. People who speak too quickly often appear anxious, nervous, or lacking in confidence. They may also be difficult to understand and follow. Those who speak too slowly can appear uncertain, unintelligent, or condescending. The optimal speaking pace varies by context, but generally falls between 140 to 160 words per minute for most professional situations. Confident speakers vary their pace strategically. They slow down for emphasis, speed up to create energy and excitement, and use pauses effectively to allow important points to sink in. They understand that silence is not empty space to be filled, but a powerful tool for emphasis and comprehension. The strategic use of pauses is one of the most underutilized tools in vocal communication. Most people fear silence and rush to fill pauses with filler words like or you know. However, deliberate pauses actually increase your perceived intelligence and authority while giving your audience time to process and absorb your message. Pauses serve multiple psychological functions. They create anticipation and draw attention to what comes next. They allow you to collect your thoughts and speak more precisely. They give others time to process complex information. They also demonstrate confidence because only secure speakers are comfortable with momentary silence. Volume patterns communicate respect and social awareness. Speaking too loudly can appear aggressive or inconsiderate. Speaking too softly can seem insecure or force others to strain to hear you. The appropriate volume depends on the size of the space, the number of people present, and the cultural context. Confident speakers modulate their volume appropriately for the situation and use volume changes for emphasis. They might speak more softly to draw people in during intimate or serious moments, or increase volume to energize and motivate during inspiring segments. Vocal variety keeps listeners engaged and conveys emotional intelligence. Monotone delivery suggests boredom, lack of engagement, or emotional flatness. Speakers who vary their pitch, pace, and volume come across as more interesting, intelligent, and emotionally aware. This doesn't mean being artificially dramatic or theatrical. Natural vocal variety reflects the emotional content of your message and your genuine engagement with the topic. When you're excited about an idea, your voice naturally becomes more energetic. When you're discussing something serious, your tone naturally becomes more grave. Articulation and clarity demonstrate respect for your audience and confidence in your message. Mumbling, slurring words, or speaking with poor articulation makes you appear less intelligent and less confident. It also forces your listeners to work harder to understand you, which can create frustration and disengagement. Clear articulation requires proper mouth and tongue positioning, adequate mouth opening, and deliberate consonant pronunciation. It's particularly important to clearly pronounce the endings of words and to speak slowly enough that all syllables can be heard distinctly. Vocal fry, uptalk, and filler words are modern speech patterns that significantly undermine perceived competence and authority. Vocal fry is the creaky, gravelly sound that occurs when your voice drops to its lowest register. Uptalk is the pattern of ending statements with rising intonation, making them sound like questions. Filler words are the ums, and likes that pepper uncertain speech. All three patterns signal insecurity, uncertainty, or lack of preparation. They make speakers appear younger, less confident, and less authoritative. Eliminating these patterns requires conscious awareness and practice, but the improvement in how others perceive you is dramatic. Emotional regulation through vocal control is a powerful tool for managing both your own state and others' responses. When you consciously control your vocal patterns, you can actually influence your emotional state. Speaking more slowly and deeply can calm anxiety. Speaking with more energy can increase motivation and enthusiasm. You can also use vocal patterns to influence others' emotional states. A calm, steady voice can help de-escalate conflict. An enthusiastic, energetic voice can motivate and inspire. A warm, gentle voice can provide comfort and support. Matching and mirroring vocal patterns can build rapport, but like body language mirroring, it must be done subtly and naturally. You might match someone's energy level, speaking pace, or volume without copying their exact vocal patterns. This creates a sense of connection and understanding. Cultural considerations significantly impact vocal communication. Different cultures have different norms for appropriate volume, pace, directness, and emotional expression. What sounds confident in one culture might sound aggressive in another. What seems appropriately enthusiastic in one context might appear unprofessional in another. Developing vocal awareness requires both self-monitoring and feedback from others. Record yourself speaking in different situations to become aware of your habitual patterns. Notice how your voice changes when you're nervous, excited, angry, or confident. Practice speaking in your optimal pitch range with good breath support and clear articulation. The goal is not to develop an artificial professional voice, but to become more conscious and intentional about how you use this powerful communication channel. When your vocal patterns authentically reflect confidence, engagement, and respect for others, they enhance your message and strengthen your relationships. Your voice is an instrument that can be developed and refined throughout your life. With awareness and practice, you can learn to use vocal patterns to project the presence and authority that serve your goals while remaining authentic to your personality and values. Chapter 9. The Psychology of Influence and Persuasion. Influence is not about manipulation or coercion. It's about understanding the psychological principles that guide human decision-making and using that knowledge to create genuine value for others while achieving your own legitimate goals. The most effective influencers don't force people to change their minds. They create conditions where people naturally want to align with their ideas. The foundation of ethical influence lies in understanding that all human decisions are ultimately emotional, even when people believe they're being purely rational. Neuroscience research reveals that people with damage to the emotional centers of their brains struggle to make even simple decisions, despite having intact logical reasoning abilities. This means that effective influence must address both the emotional and rational aspects of decision-making. The first principle of influence psychology is reciprocity, the deep human need to return favors and maintain balance in relationships. When someone does something for us, we feel psychologically obligated to do something for them in return. This principle is so powerful that it works even when the initial favor is small, unsolicited, or comes from someone we don't particularly like. Reciprocity works because it served an important evolutionary function. Humans who were skilled at building reciprocal relationships were more likely to receive help during times of need, making them more likely to survive and reproduce. Today, this ancient mechanism still operates powerfully in modern interactions. To use reciprocity ethically, focus on providing genuine value before asking for anything in return. This might mean sharing useful information, making helpful introductions, offering your expertise, or simply giving someone your full attention and respect. The key is that your initial contribution must be meaningful to the other person, not just meaningful to you. The second principle is commitment and consistency. People have a deep psychological need to appear consistent with their previous decisions, statements, and beliefs. Once someone takes a position or makes a commitment, they feel pressure to align their future behavior with that commitment, even if circumstances change. This principle is particularly powerful when people make public commitments or when they feel they've chosen their position freely rather than being pressured into it. Written commitments are more powerful than verbal ones, and commitments that require effort or sacrifice are more powerful than easy commitments. To leverage commitment and consistency, help people articulate their own values, goals, and priorities. Ask questions that lead them to express why your proposal aligns with what they already believe or want. Once they've stated their position, they'll feel internal pressure to follow through on their own words. The third principle is social proof, the tendency to look to others for guidance about appropriate behavior, especially in uncertain situations. When people are unsure what to do, they observe what others in similar situations have done and follow that example. This is why testimonials, case studies, and examples of what people like you have done are so persuasive. Social proof is most effective when the examples come from people the target audience identifies with. A corporate executive is more likely to be influenced by what other executives have done than by what college students have done. Someone from a particular region or industry will be more influenced by examples from that same background. To use social proof effectively, collect and share relevant examples of others who have made similar decisions or achieved similar results. Be specific about the similarities between your examples and your audience's situation. If possible, facilitate direct contact between prospects and satisfied customers or clients. The fourth principle is liking. People are more easily influenced by those they like and feel connected to. We like people who are similar to us, who complement us genuinely, who are physically attractive, and who we associate with positive experiences. We also like people who seem to like us. Building liking requires genuine interest in others and the ability to find authentic connections and similarities. This doesn't mean being fake or manipulative, but rather being genuinely curious about others and highlighting real commonalities when they exist. The fifth principle is authority. People defer to experts and those in positions of legitimate power. However, authority doesn't always require formal credentials or titles. Demonstrated expertise, confident presentation, and the respect of others can all create perceived authority. To build appropriate authority, focus on developing genuine expertise in your field and finding credible ways to demonstrate that expertise. This might include sharing relevant credentials, displaying symbols of expertise, or having others introduce your qualifications. However, authority must be balanced with approachability. Too much emphasis on status can create distance rather than influence. The sixth principle is scarcity. People value things more when they're rare, limited, or potentially unavailable. This principle works because scarcity often does indicate value in the real world. It also triggers loss aversion, the psychological reality that people feel the pain of losing something more strongly than the pleasure of gaining the same thing. Scarcity must be genuine to be ethical. Creating false urgency or artificial limitations is manipulative and ultimately undermines trust. However, when genuine scarcity exists, limited time, exclusive access, or finite resources, highlighting these constraints can motivate action. The psychology of framing dramatically affects how people interpret and respond to information. The same factual information can be presented in ways that emphasize benefits or costs, gains or losses, opportunities or risks. People's responses change dramatically based on how information is framed, even when the underlying facts remain identical. Effective framing requires understanding your audience's values, fears, and motivations. For risk-averse people, emphasize how your proposal reduces risk or prevents loss. For opportunity-seeking people, emphasize potential gains and advantages. For relationship-focused people, emphasize how your proposal strengthens connections or serves others. The timing of influence attempts significantly affects their success. People are more receptive to certain types of influence at different times and in different contexts. They're more open to new ideas when they're in good moods, less defensive when they feel safe and respected, and more likely to commit when they feel they have control over the decision. Understanding resistance is crucial for ethical influence. When people resist your ideas, they're usually protecting something they value: their autonomy, their existing beliefs, their resources, or their relationships. Effective influence addresses these underlying concerns rather than simply pushing harder against resistance. The most powerful form of influence is inspirational motivation, connecting your proposals to people's deeper values, aspirations, and sense of purpose. When people see how your ideas serve their highest goals and values, they don't just comply with your requests. They become genuinely enthusiastic supporters. This requires understanding what truly matters to each person beyond their surface-level wants. What are their core values? What legacy do they want to create? What would make them feel proud and fulfilled? When you can authentically connect your proposals to these deeper motivations, influence becomes inspiration. Chapter 10. Emotional contagion. How emotions spread. Human emotions are as contagious as viruses, spreading from person to person through unconscious mimicry, shared attention, and neurological synchronization. Understanding emotional contagion gives you the power to consciously influence the emotional atmosphere of any interaction, while protecting yourself from absorbing negative emotions that don't serve you. The science of emotional contagion reveals that when you're in the presence of another person, your brain automatically mimics their facial expressions, posture, vocal patterns, and breathing rhythms. This mimicry happens through your mirror neuron system, specialized brain cells that fire both when you experience an emotion and when you observe someone else experiencing that same emotion. This neurological mimicry creates what researchers call emotional convergence. Within minutes of interacting with someone, your emotional states begin to synchronize. If you're with someone who's anxious, your stress hormones increase. If you're with someone who's genuinely enthusiastic, you feel more energetic and positive. This happens regardless of what you're consciously thinking about the person or situation. The evolutionary purpose of emotional contagion was to create group cohesion and coordinate collective responses to threats or opportunities. When one member of a tribe spotted danger and felt fear, that emotion quickly spread through the group, allowing everyone to respond appropriately even before they consciously understood the threat. Today, this same mechanism operates in boardrooms, classrooms, and family gatherings. The practical implications are enormous. Your emotional state affects everyone around you, and their emotional states affect you. This means that emotional regulation isn't just personal, it's social. When you manage your own emotions skillfully, you're contributing to the emotional health of everyone you interact with. The first level of emotional contagion is automatic mimicry. When someone smiles genuinely, your brain automatically triggers the same facial muscles, creating the physical experience of smiling even if you're not conscious of it. When someone speaks in a tense, rapid voice, your breathing and heart rate unconsciously accelerate to match theirs. This mimicry happens within milliseconds and operates below the threshold of conscious awareness. You can observe this phenomenon by watching people in restaurants or coffee shops. Notice how couples unconsciously mirror each other's posture, how groups match each other's energy levels, and how one person's laughter triggers laughter in others. The second level is emotional convergence, where the physical mimicry leads to actual emotional experience. Because emotions are partly created by physical sensations and expressions, mimicking someone's emotional displays causes you to experience diluted versions of their emotions. When you unconsciously copy someone's stressed posture and rapid breathing, you begin to feel stressed yourself. This convergence is strongest with people you feel connected to or identify with. You're more likely to catch emotions from family members, close friends, or people you admire than from strangers or people you dislike. However, prolonged exposure to anyone's emotional state can create convergence, which is why working in toxic environments eventually affects even the most resilient people. The third level is emotional amplification, where groups collectively intensify emotional experiences. When multiple people share the same emotion, it becomes stronger than any individual would experience alone. This is why crowds can become euphoric at concerts, terrified during emergencies, or angry during protests. The shared emotional experience amplifies beyond what any individual brought to the situation. Understanding amplification helps explain why team dynamics are so powerful and why emotional leadership is so important. One person's genuine enthusiasm can energize an entire group. One person's negativity can drain collective energy and motivation. Positive emotional contagion creates upward spirals in relationships and groups. When you consistently bring positive emotions like enthusiasm, calm confidence, or genuine warmth to interactions, others begin to associate those feelings with your presence. This makes people want to spend time with you and creates opportunities for deeper connection and influence. However, positive emotional contagion must be authentic. Fake enthusiasm or forced positivity is quickly detected and can actually create negative reactions. People's mirror neuron systems are sophisticated enough to distinguish between genuine and artificial emotional expressions. Negative emotional contagion creates downward spirals that can poison relationships and group dynamics. Chronic negativity, anxiety, anger, or depression spreads through social networks, affecting everyone's mental health and performance. This is why protecting your emotional environment is so crucial for your well-being and success. The key insight is that you have significant control over emotional contagion patterns. While you cannot completely prevent emotions from spreading, you can consciously choose which emotions to amplify and which to resist. This requires developing both emotional awareness and emotional regulation skills. Emotional awareness means recognizing your own emotional states as they arise and understanding how those states affect others. It also means becoming sensitive to the emotional currents in your environment and noticing when you're absorbing emotions that don't originate from your own experience. Emotional regulation means developing the ability to consciously shift your emotional state when needed. This doesn't mean suppressing authentic emotions, but rather having tools to manage your emotional state so it serves your goals and relationships. Techniques include breathing exercises, physical movement, mental reframing, and environmental changes. Creating positive emotional contagion requires intentionality about the energy you bring to interactions. Before important conversations or meetings, take time to center yourself and consciously choose the emotional state you want to project. If you want others to feel calm and confident, you must first cultivate those states within yourself. This involves managing your physiology, your posture, breathing, facial expression, and vocal tone, because these physical elements both reflect and create emotional states. When you consciously adopt the physiology of confidence, enthusiasm, or calm focus, you begin to feel those emotions more strongly and broadcast them more effectively to others. Protecting yourself from negative emotional contagion requires creating boundaries and developing resilience strategies. This might mean limiting time with chronically negative people, creating physical distance during emotionally intense situations, or developing mental techniques to maintain your center when surrounded by difficult emotions. One effective strategy is the practice of conscious breathing. When you're in a challenging emotional environment, focus on maintaining slow, deep, rhythmic breathing. This helps regulate your nervous system and prevents you from unconsciously matching the stress patterns of others. Another strategy is emotional labeling, consciously recognizing when you're experiencing emotions that don't belong to you. When you notice feeling anxious, angry, or sad without a clear personal cause, ask yourself whether you might be absorbing these emotions from your environment. This awareness creates space between you and the emotion, reducing its impact. The most advanced practice is emotional leadership, consciously using emotional contagion to improve group dynamics and relationships. This means taking responsibility for the emotional atmosphere you create and strategically using positive emotions to influence outcomes. Emotional leaders understand that their emotional state is never purely personal. They recognize that calm confidence during a crisis can steady an entire team, that genuine enthusiasm for a project can motivate exceptional performance, and that compassionate presence during difficult times can provide healing and hope for others. The goal is not to manipulate others through emotional contagion, but to become more conscious and responsible about this natural psychological process. When you understand that emotions spread, you can choose to be a source of positive emotional influence while protecting yourself from negative emotional environments that don't serve your growth or well-being. Chapter 11. Social hierarchy and power dynamics. Every human interaction involves subtle negotiations about relative social position and influence. Understanding these power dynamics gives you the ability to navigate social hierarchies effectively, build appropriate authority, and create collaborative relationships rather than competitive ones. This knowledge is essential for leadership, career advancement, and building respect in any social context. Human beings are fundamentally hierarchical creatures. This isn't about domination or oppression. It's about the basic organizational structures that allow groups to function effectively. Hierarchies exist to coordinate group behavior, allocate resources efficiently, and reduce conflict through clear role definitions. The key is learning to work within these natural patterns while maintaining your integrity and respecting others' dignity. Social status is communicated through hundreds of subtle behavioral cues that operate below conscious awareness. High-status individuals typically move more slowly and deliberately, take up more space, speak with greater vocal authority, and display more relaxed body language. They make more direct eye contact, interrupt more frequently, and receive more attention and deference from others. However, true high status differs dramatically from dominance displays or aggressive posturing. Authentic high status is characterized by calm, confidence, generosity toward others, and the ability to elevate those around you. It's about being secure enough in your own value that you don't need to diminish others to feel important. The foundation of healthy status is competence, being genuinely skilled at things that matter in your context. This might be professional expertise, emotional intelligence, problem-solving ability, or leadership skills. People naturally defer to those who demonstrate superior capability in areas they value. Building competence-based status requires continuous learning and skill development. It means becoming excellent at what you do, while also developing the broader capabilities that enhance your effectiveness. This includes communication skills, emotional regulation, strategic thinking, and the ability to understand and work with different personality types. The second element of healthy status is social value. your ability to contribute positively to others' lives and goals. High-status people are resources for their communities. They share knowledge, make valuable connections, provide opportunities, and help solve problems. They're the people others want to be around, because interactions with them are consistently beneficial. Creating social value requires shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Instead of hoarding opportunities, information, or relationships, you look for ways to share them generously. This counterintuitive approach actually increases your status because it demonstrates both your resource access and your confidence in your ability to create more value. Presence is the third component of natural status. This involves being fully engaged in interactions, maintaining appropriate eye contact, speaking with conviction, and projecting calm confidence even in challenging situations. Presence cannot be faked because it requires genuine self-assurance and emotional regulation. Developing presence begins with internal work, becoming comfortable with yourself, clarifying your values and goals, and building genuine confidence through competence and contribution. External presence flows naturally from internal certainty and self-acceptance. Status signaling through material possessions, credentials, or association with high-status people can temporarily enhance your position, but it's ultimately less powerful than earned status based on actual value creation. People quickly see through artificial status displays and may even resent them if they're not backed by genuine contribution. The most effective approach is to let your work and character speak for themselves while being appropriately aware of how status symbols affect others' perceptions. This might mean dressing appropriately for your context, displaying relevant credentials when helpful, or mentioning significant accomplishments when they're relevant to the conversation. Power dynamics in groups follow predictable patterns that you can learn to recognize and navigate skillfully. In any group, people naturally sort themselves into leaders, followers, supporters, and challengers based on their personalities, competencies, and goals. Understanding these roles helps you position yourself effectively and work collaboratively with others. Leaders set direction, make decisions, and take responsibility for outcomes. They typically have the strongest combination of competence, confidence, and communication skills. However, leadership can be situational. The same person might lead in one context and follow in another based on relevant expertise and group needs. Followers provide essential support, implementation, and feedback. Good followers are not passive or subservient. They're active contributors who choose to support leadership while maintaining their own judgment and values. The ability to follow skillfully is as important as the ability to lead. Supporters provide encouragement, resources, and advocacy. They help build consensus, maintain group morale, and ensure that everyone feels included and valued. Supporters often have high emotional intelligence and serve as social connectors within groups. Challengers question assumptions, push for higher standards, and prevent groupthink. They're essential for innovation and avoiding serious mistakes, but they must express their challenges constructively rather than destructively. Effective challengers criticize ideas while supporting people. Navigating office politics and organizational hierarchies requires understanding both formal and informal power structures. Formal power comes from titles, roles, and official authority. Informal power comes from relationships, expertise, and personal influence. Often, the informal power structure is more important than the official hierarchy. Building influence within organizations means developing relationships at multiple levels, understanding the unwritten rules and cultural norms, and finding ways to contribute value that others recognize and appreciate. This involves being politically aware without being manipulative or compromising your integrity. The concept of social capital, the value of your relationships and reputation, is crucial for long-term success in any field. Social capital is built through consistent reliability, generous contribution to others' success, and maintaining high ethical standards, even when it's difficult. Gender, cultural background, and other demographic factors significantly influence how status and power dynamics operate. What signals high status in one culture might be inappropriate in another. Understanding these variations helps you adapt your approach while staying true to your core values and personality. The goal is not to dominate others or climb hierarchies at any cost, but to understand how these natural human patterns work so you can participate in them skillfully and ethically. This means building genuine competence, contributing real value, and treating others with respect, regardless of their position in any hierarchy. When you understand social hierarchy and power dynamics, you can build appropriate authority without arrogance, follow leadership without losing your autonomy, and create collaborative relationships that benefit everyone involved. You become someone others naturally want to work with and support, because you understand how to navigate social structures while maintaining your integrity and helping others succeed. Chapter 12. Conflict, Psychology, and Resolution Mastery. Conflict is an inevitable part of human interaction, but most people handle it poorly because they don't understand the psychology underlying disagreements and disputes. Learning to navigate conflict skillfully transforms it from a destructive force into an opportunity for deeper understanding, stronger relationships, and better solutions. This skill is essential for leadership, healthy relationships, and personal peace. The first principle of conflict psychology is understanding that most conflicts are not really about the surface-level issues people are arguing about. They're about deeper needs, fears, and values that feel threatened. Someone might argue about budget allocations when they're really concerned about respect and influence. Someone might fight about household chores when they're actually feeling unappreciated or overwhelmed. Effective conflict resolution requires identifying and addressing these underlying concerns rather than just the presenting problems. This means listening for the emotions and needs beneath people's positions and helping them articulate what they're really trying to protect or achieve. The second principle is recognizing that conflict triggers primitive survival responses in the human brain. When people feel threatened, criticized, or disrespected, their amygdala activates the fight or flight response, flooding their system with stress hormones and reducing access to higher-order thinking skills. This is why people say and do things during conflicts that they later regret. Understanding this neurological reality helps you stay calm during conflicts and avoid escalating others' defensive responses. When you recognize that someone's aggressive or defensive behavior is coming from their threatened nervous system rather than their rational mind, you can respond with appropriate de-escalation rather than counterattack. The third principle is that people's perception of fairness is more important than objective fairness in determining their satisfaction with conflict resolution. Someone might accept an objectively worse outcome if they feel the process was fair and their concerns were heard. Conversely, They might reject an objectively better outcome if they feel manipulated or dismissed. This means that how you handle conflict matters as much as what solutions you reach. Treating people with respect, listening to their concerns genuinely, and involving them in problem-solving creates buy-in and satisfaction, even when compromises are necessary. Emotional regulation is the foundation of effective conflict management. When you can stay calm, centered, and thinking clearly during disagreements, you're able to make better decisions and help others return to rationality. This requires developing your capacity to tolerate discomfort, manage your own triggers, and maintain perspective during difficult conversations. Emotional regulation begins with recognizing your early warning signs of escalation. Changes in your breathing, tension in your body, or shifts in your thinking patterns. When you notice these signs, you can use techniques like deep breathing, mental reframing, or taking breaks to maintain your equilibrium. Active listening during conflict means truly trying to understand the other person's perspective rather than just waiting for your turn to argue. This involves reflecting back what you hear, asking clarifying questions, and acknowledging the validity of their concerns, even when you disagree with their solutions. Most people defend their positions during conflicts rather than exploring their interests. Positions are the specific solutions people want, while interests are the underlying needs those solutions are meant to address. By focusing on interests rather than positions, you can often find creative solutions that satisfy everyone's core needs. For example, if two colleagues are fighting over who gets the corner office, the position-level conflict seems like a zero-sum game. But if you explore their interests, one person values status recognition while the other needs quiet space for concentration, you might find solutions that address both needs without anyone getting the specific office. The language you use during conflict dramatically affects outcomes. Accusatory language that starts with "you always" or "you never" triggers defensiveness and escalation. Descriptive language that focuses on specific behaviors and their impact creates space for productive dialogue. Instead of saying, "You're being disrespectful," you might say, "When meetings start without waiting for everyone to arrive, I feel like my time isn't valued and I worry that I'll miss important information." This approach describes the problem without attacking the person's character. Timing conflicts appropriately increases the likelihood of successful resolution. Trying to resolve serious disagreements when people are tired, stressed, or distracted usually makes things worse. Creating appropriate time and space for difficult conversations demonstrates respect and increases the chances of productive dialogue. The concept of face-saving is crucial in conflict resolution. People need to be able to change their positions or admit mistakes without losing dignity or respect. Creating opportunities for graceful exits and mutual face-saving often unlocks resolution when people are stuck in rigid positions. This might involve acknowledging how someone's original position made sense given the information available at the time, focusing on how circumstances have changed rather than who was right or wrong, or finding ways for everyone to contribute to the final solution. Cultural differences significantly affect conflict styles and resolution preferences. Some cultures value direct confrontation and explicit communication during conflicts. Others prefer indirect approaches that preserve harmony and allow people to save face. Understanding these differences helps you adapt your approach appropriately. Power imbalances complicate conflict resolution because they affect people's willingness to express their true concerns and their ability to influence outcomes. When significant power differences exist, the higher power person has a responsibility to create psychological safety and ensure that lower power voices are heard and respected. Mediation skills become essential when you're helping others resolve their conflicts. This involves remaining neutral, helping people communicate more effectively, and guiding them toward mutually acceptable solutions without imposing your own preferences. Effective mediators focus on process rather than content. They help people slow down, listen to each other, identify common ground, and brainstorm creative solutions. They manage the emotional climate and ensure that everyone feels heard and respected. The goal of conflict resolution should be restoration rather than victory. This means repairing relationships, rebuilding trust, and creating stronger foundations for future collaboration. It often involves addressing the systemic issues that created the conflict rather than just solving the immediate problem. Post-conflict follow-up is essential for preventing recurring problems. This might involve checking in on how agreements are working, addressing new concerns that emerge, and continuing to strengthen the relationship foundation that was damaged during the conflict. When you master conflict psychology and resolution skills, disagreements become opportunities for deeper understanding and stronger relationships. You become someone others trust to handle difficult situations fairly and effectively, which enhances your influence and leadership capacity in all areas of life. Chapter 13. Building unshakable charisma and magnetic presence. Charisma is not a mysterious gift that some people are born with. It's a learnable set of behaviors and mental patterns that create compelling presence and natural influence. Charismatic people make others feel energized, valued, and inspired. They have the ability to command attention without demanding it, and to influence others through attraction rather than pressure. The foundation of charisma is presence, the quality of being completely engaged and focused on the current moment and the people you're with. When you're truly present, others feel your full attention and energy, which is rare and powerful in our distracted world. Presence cannot be faked because it requires genuine interest and engagement. Developing presence begins with managing your internal state. This means clearing mental clutter, releasing anxiety about the future or regrets about the past, and focusing your attention completely on what's happening right now. It requires turning off your internal self-monitoring and criticism to become fully available to others. Physical presence involves your posture, breathing, and energy level. Charismatic people tend to have upright, relaxed posture that suggests both confidence and openness. They breathe deeply and slowly, which creates calm energy and allows their voice to resonate fully. They move deliberately rather than frantically, suggesting that they're in control of themselves and their environment. Emotional presence means being authentic and emotionally available. Charismatic people don't hide their enthusiasm, concern, or other appropriate emotions. They allow others to see their genuine reactions while maintaining emotional regulation. This authenticity creates connection because people feel they're interacting with a real person rather than a social mask. Mental presence involves giving others your complete intellectual attention. This means listening actively, asking thoughtful questions, and engaging fully with their ideas. When someone feels that you're truly focused on understanding them, they experience a form of attention that's increasingly rare in our multitasking culture. The second element of charisma is power. Not power over others, but personal power that comes from confidence, competence, and the ability to influence your environment. This type of power makes others feel safe and creates trust in your ability to handle challenges and create positive outcomes. Building personal power requires developing genuine competence in areas that matter to you and others. This might be professional expertise, problem-solving skills, emotional intelligence, or leadership abilities. The key is becoming excellent at things that create real value rather than just seeking the appearance of competence. Confidence is a crucial component of personal power, but it must be based on reality rather than false bravado. True confidence comes from knowing your capabilities, accepting your limitations, and believing in your ability to learn and grow. It's characterized by calm self-assurance rather than loud self-promotion. The ability to make decisions and take action demonstrates personal power. Charismatic people don't constantly seek approval or consensus before moving forward. They gather appropriate input, make thoughtful decisions, and take responsibility for outcomes. This decisiveness creates confidence in their leadership. The third element of charisma is warmth, the ability to make others feel valued, understood, and cared for. Warmth creates emotional safety and makes people want to be around you. It's expressed through genuine interest in others, empathy for their experiences, and generosity with your attention and resources. Developing warmth requires cultivating genuine curiosity about other people. This means being interested in their thoughts, feelings, experiences, and perspectives rather than just waiting for opportunities to talk about yourself. Curious people ask better questions, listen more attentively, and make others feel more interesting and important. Empathy is essential for warmth. This involves the ability to understand and share others' emotional experiences, to see situations from their perspective, and to respond with appropriate compassion. Empathy cannot be faked. It requires genuine concern for others' well-being. Generosity amplifies warmth. This doesn't necessarily mean financial generosity, but rather generosity with your time, attention, knowledge, and support. Charismatic people look for ways to help others succeed and feel good about themselves. They share credit generously and take responsibility when things go wrong. The integration of presence, power, and warmth creates what researchers call charismatic leadership. When these three elements work together, they create magnetic attraction that draws people in and inspires them to follow your vision and direction. However, charisma must be balanced appropriately for different situations. Sometimes you need more power and less warmth during crisis management or when making difficult decisions. Sometimes you need more warmth and less power when comforting someone or building relationships. The most charismatic people can adjust their balance based on what the situation requires. Storytelling is a powerful tool for expressing charisma. Humans are naturally drawn to stories, and people who can tell compelling stories command attention and create emotional connections. Effective storytelling involves clear structure, vivid details, appropriate emotion, and relevance to your audience's interests and needs. The stories you tell should illustrate your values, demonstrate your character, and provide value to your listeners. They should be authentic experiences rather than fabricated tales designed to impress. The best charismatic storytellers share both successes and failures, showing vulnerability along with strength. Vision and inspiration are advanced charismatic skills. This involves the ability to see possibilities that others miss, articulate compelling futures, and inspire others to work toward shared goals. Visionary charisma requires understanding what motivates people deeply and connecting your ideas to their highest aspirations. Creating inspirational vision involves painting pictures of positive futures that people can imagine themselves being part of. It means helping others see how their individual contributions serve larger purposes and how working together can create something more meaningful than what any individual could achieve alone. Energy management is crucial for sustaining charisma over time. Charismatic presence requires significant mental and emotional energy, so you need strategies for maintaining your vitality and avoiding burnout. This includes proper rest, stress management, and regularly engaging in activities that restore your enthusiasm and optimism. The goal of developing charisma should not be manipulation or ego gratification, but rather the ability to create positive influence and meaningful connections with others. When your charisma is grounded in genuine care for others and commitment to worthy goals, it becomes a force for positive change rather than self-serving manipulation. Authentic charisma attracts people who share your values and vision while repelling those who don't align with your principles. This natural selection process helps you build relationships and opportunities that truly serve your goals and values rather than just providing superficial social success. Chapter 14. Advanced Conversation Psychology. Conversation is the primary medium through which relationships are built, influence is exercised, and social intelligence is demonstrated. Yet most people have never learned the sophisticated psychological principles that govern effective dialogue. Mastering conversation psychology gives you the ability to connect deeply with others, navigate complex social situations, and create interactions that are meaningful for everyone involved. The foundation of conversation mastery is understanding that every conversation serves multiple functions simultaneously. On the surface level, conversations exchange information, but beneath that, they establish rapport, negotiate status, build trust, and create emotional experiences. The most skilled conversationalists manage all these levels simultaneously. The opening moments of any conversation set the tone and trajectory for everything that follows. Research shows that people form lasting impressions about conversation partners within the first few exchanges. This means that how you begin conversations significantly affects their outcomes. Effective conversation openers demonstrate interest in the other person, establish common ground, or introduce intriguing topics that invite engagement. They avoid generic questions like, "How are you?" that typically generate automatic responses. Instead, they might reference shared experiences, current events relevant to both parties, or observations about the immediate environment. The psychology of questions reveals that the types of questions you ask dramatically shape the depth and direction of conversations. Closed questions that can be answered with yes or no tend to create interview-like exchanges that feel formal and limited. Open questions that require elaboration create space for more meaningful dialogue. However, the most powerful questions are those that invite reflection and self-discovery. Instead of asking, "What do you do for work?" you might ask, "What aspects of your work energize you most?" This approach helps people think more deeply about their experiences while providing you with richer information about their values and motivations. Sequential questioning techniques allow you to guide conversations progressively deeper. This involves starting with lighter topics and gradually moving toward more significant subjects, as trust, and rapport develop. Skilled conversationalists can take discussions from small talk to meaningful personal sharing within minutes by following natural progression patterns. The concept of conversational threading involves picking up on small details that others mention and exploring them further. When someone mentions a trip they took, a book they read, or a challenge they're facing, you can thread deeper by asking follow-up questions that show genuine interest and help them elaborate on their experiences. Threading demonstrates that you're truly listening and creates opportunities for others to share more personal information. It also helps conversations flow naturally rather than jumping abruptly from topic to topic without logical connection. Active listening in conversation goes far beyond simply hearing words. It involves listening for emotions, values, assumptions, and unspoken concerns. It means noticing what people emphasize, what they avoid discussing, and what seems to energize or drain them as they speak. Reflective listening techniques help others feel heard and understood while giving you opportunities to clarify your understanding. This might involve paraphrasing what you heard, reflecting back emotions you noticed, or asking questions that help people clarify their own thoughts. The psychology of self-disclosure reveals that relationships deepen through mutual vulnerability. When you share appropriate personal information, it creates psychological safety for others to reciprocate with their own sharing. This creates upward spirals of trust and intimacy. However, self-disclosure must be calibrated appropriately for the relationship and context. Sharing too much too soon can make others uncomfortable, while sharing too little keeps relationships superficial. The key is matching the depth level of others' sharing, while gradually increasing vulnerability as trust develops. Conversational turn-taking follows subtle psychological rules that most people observe unconsciously. These include respecting natural pause points, avoiding interruptions except when appropriate, and ensuring that conversation time is distributed fairly among participants. Understanding these patterns helps you participate more skillfully in group conversations, know when to speak and when to listen, and facilitate discussions that include everyone rather than being dominated by the most talkative participants. Emotional calibration in conversation means adjusting your energy, tone, and content to match what the situation requires. If someone is sharing something serious or painful, matching their emotional tone shows respect and empathy. If someone is excited about an achievement, sharing their enthusiasm creates connection and rapport. This doesn't mean being fake or losing your authenticity. Rather, it means being emotionally flexible and responsive to others' needs while remaining true to your core personality and values. The art of conversational influence involves guiding discussions toward topics and conclusions that serve everyone's interests while respecting others' autonomy and judgment. This requires understanding what motivates each person and finding ways to connect your ideas to their values and goals. Influential conversationalists ask questions that help others think through issues rather than simply presenting their own opinions. They use stories and examples to illustrate points rather than relying on abstract arguments. They acknowledge others' perspectives before introducing their own views. Managing difficult conversations requires understanding the psychological dynamics that create defensiveness and conflict. When people feel criticized, misunderstood, or threatened, they become defensive and stop listening effectively. Avoiding these triggers allows you to address challenging topics without creating unnecessary resistance. Techniques for difficult conversations include separating people from problems, focusing on behaviors rather than character, using I statements to express your perspective, and looking for underlying interests, rather than arguing about positions. Nonverbal communication continues throughout every conversation, providing continuous feedback about how your words are being received and how others are feeling. Monitoring facial expressions, body language, and vocal tone helps you adjust your approach in real time to maintain engagement and rapport. The conclusion of conversations affects how people remember the entire interaction. Strong endings might involve summarizing key points, expressing appreciation for the other person's time and insights, making concrete plans for follow-up, or simply acknowledging the value of the connection. Conversation mastery also involves knowing when conversations should end. Skilled conversationalists can sense when energy is waning, when important topics have been covered, or when continuing would be less valuable than concluding on a positive note. The goal of advanced conversation psychology is not to manipulate others or always get your way, but to create interactions that are genuinely valuable for everyone involved. When you can facilitate conversations that help others think more clearly, feel more understood, and connect more deeply, you become someone people seek out and value highly. Chapter 15. Creating deep trust and lasting influence. Trust is the foundation of all meaningful relationships and lasting influence. Unlike temporary compliance that comes from authority or pressure, trust-based influence creates genuine commitment and long-term loyalty. Building deep trust requires understanding the psychological mechanisms that create confidence in your character, competence, and intentions. The psychology of trust reveals that humans assess trustworthiness through three primary dimensions: ability, benevolence, and integrity. Ability refers to your competence and capability to deliver on commitments. Benevolence involves your genuine care for others' well-being and interests. Integrity means alignment between your stated values and actual behavior. All three elements must be present for deep trust to develop. Someone might be highly competent but not care about your interests, making them untrustworthy despite their abilities. Someone might care deeply about you but lack the skills to help effectively. Someone might be both caring and capable but demonstrate inconsistency between their words and actions. Building trust in your ability requires developing genuine competence in areas that matter to others and finding appropriate ways to demonstrate that competence without appearing arrogant or boastful. This involves continuous learning, skill development, and the humility to acknowledge the limits of your expertise. Demonstrating competence effectively means focusing on results rather than credentials, sharing specific examples of successful outcomes, and being transparent about both successes and failures. People trust those who are honest about their limitations more than those who claim perfection. The ability component of trust also includes reliability, consistently following through on commitments, meeting deadlines, and maintaining quality standards. Small consistencies in minor matters create confidence in your reliability for major responsibilities. Benevolence is demonstrated through genuine interest in others' success and well-being. This involves listening actively to understand others' needs and concerns, offering help without being asked, and celebrating others' achievements without jealousy or competition. Building benevolence-based trust requires shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Instead of seeing others' success as threats to your own advancement, You look for ways to contribute to their growth and achievement. This counterintuitive approach actually increases your influence because people naturally want to support those who support them. The expression of benevolence must be authentic rather than strategic. People can sense when care and concern are genuine versus when they're performed for ulterior motives. True benevolence flows from genuine appreciation for others and belief in their value and potential. Integrity involves consistency between your stated values and actual behavior, especially when maintaining that consistency is difficult or costly. It means keeping commitments even when circumstances change, admitting mistakes when you make them, and choosing ethical paths even when easier alternatives exist. Building integrity-based trust requires first clarifying your own values and principles, then making decisions that align with those values regardless of external pressures. It involves being honest about your motivations and transparent about potential conflicts of interest. Integrity is often tested in small moments rather than dramatic situations. How you handle minor commitments, respond to criticism, treat people who can't help you, and manage confidential information all provide evidence about your character that others use to assess your trustworthiness. The vulnerability paradox in trust building reveals that showing appropriate vulnerability actually increases others' confidence in you rather than diminishing it. When you admit mistakes, acknowledge uncertainties, or share personal challenges, you demonstrate emotional security and authenticity that builds deeper connections. However, vulnerability must be calibrated appropriately for the relationship and context. Sharing too much too soon can make others uncomfortable, while maintaining perfect facades prevents the deeper connections that create lasting trust and influence. Effective vulnerability involves sharing challenges you've overcome rather than current overwhelming problems. Admitting mistakes while demonstrating what you've learned from them, and expressing uncertainties about situations while maintaining confidence in your ability to figure things out. Consistency over time is perhaps the most crucial element of trust building. Trust develops through accumulated experiences of reliability, honesty, and care. It cannot be created quickly through grand gestures, but must be built through consistent behavior in countless small interactions. This means that trust building is a long-term strategy that requires patience and sustained commitment to your values and relationships. It involves maintaining high standards for yourself, even when no one is watching, and treating all people with respect, regardless of their ability to benefit you. The reciprocal nature of trust means that building trust in others often increases their trust in you. When you demonstrate confidence in others' capabilities, give them important responsibilities, and support them during challenges, they often respond by increasing their commitment to you and your shared goals. This involves strategic trust giving, deliberately extending trust to others in appropriate situations to strengthen relationships and encourage their growth. It means believing in others' potential and giving them opportunities to prove themselves while providing support for their success. Communication transparency enhances trust by reducing uncertainty and speculation about your intentions and decision-making processes. This involves explaining your reasoning when making decisions that affect others, providing regular updates on important projects, and being open about challenges and setbacks. Transparency doesn't mean sharing every detail or thought, but rather ensuring that others understand your motivations and decision-making criteria. It involves being proactive in communication rather than forcing others to guess or assume what you're thinking. Conflict handling significantly affects trust levels in relationships. How you respond when disagreements arise, mistakes happen, or conflicts emerge provides powerful evidence about your character and reliability. Handling conflicts with integrity, fairness, and respect builds trust, even when resolution is difficult. This involves taking responsibility for your contributions to problems, listening genuinely to others' concerns, working collaboratively towards solutions, and maintaining respect for people even when you disagree with their positions or decisions. Trust repair becomes necessary when trust has been damaged through mistakes, misunderstandings, or failures. Rebuilding trust requires acknowledging what went wrong, taking full responsibility without making excuses, demonstrating genuine remorse, and creating concrete plans for preventing similar problems in the future. Trust repair also requires patience and consistent positive behavior over time. Once trust is broken, it typically takes longer to rebuild than it took to establish originally. This process cannot be rushed, but requires sustained commitment to demonstrating renewed trustworthiness. The compound effect of trust means that as your reputation for trustworthiness grows, each new relationship benefits from that reputation. People who have heard about your reliability and integrity from others begin interactions with higher trust levels, creating positive cycles that enhance your influence and effectiveness. Building this type of reputation requires maintaining consistent standards across all relationships and contexts. It means treating everyone with respect and honesty regardless of their status or ability to help you. Because your reputation is built on how you handle all interactions, not just the prominent ones. The ultimate goal of trust building is creating relationships where influence flows naturally from mutual respect and shared commitment rather than from position, pressure, or manipulation. When people trust you deeply, they seek your input, value your opinions, and commit enthusiastically to shared goals because they believe you have their best interests at heart. This type of influence is sustainable over long periods, survives challenges and setbacks, and creates genuine satisfaction for everyone involved. It transforms you from someone who gets compliance into someone who inspires commitment, loyalty, and genuine partnership in achieving meaningful goals.